to John, the 8th chapter. Jesus said to the Jews who had believed in him, "If you continue in my word, you are truly my disciples, and you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free." They answered him, "We are descendants of Abraham and have never been slaves to anyone. What do you mean by saying, 'You will be free'?" Jesus answered them, "Very truly I tell you, everyone who commits sin is a slave to sin. The slave does not have a permanent place in the household, but the Son has a place forever. So if the Son makes you free, you will be free indeed." The Gospel of Jesus Christ.
Praise to you, O Christ.
My guess is that a lot of you in your younger years, when there were little rugrats, little kids running around, were involved in the Sunday school. Is that the truth for some of you? Okay. Well, I'm just going to say, when I was a little girl, for some odd reason, we sang "A Mighty Fortress Is Our God" every Easter Sunday in my little Catholic church. No idea why, but I would get excited because it was a song from one of my favorite shows. What do you think that was? Davy and Goliath, yes. So if you ever wonder if some of that outreach through different means works, well, it certainly was one thing that kept me close to God. So that's my thought for the day. Today is Reformation Sunday, and I see a whole bunch of you wearing red. And it can be a wonderful day of reflection. You already know that when Luther nailed his 95 Theses to the door of the church at Wittenberg, that it was one of the most important events in the history of the West. 500 years later, the reasons for it and the revolution it set in motion can feel like ancient history. In some ways, it still is. But in many ways, it is not. We still struggle to define and then apply the worldview and theology today. Luther found himself in the middle of the debate, trying to find the nuance that would describe the relationship between faith and works. How we can sometimes do the good, but often we fall short. Luther maintains that we can genuinely love. However, we can't always do so. And even when we do, that love pales in comparison to the good that is God and to God's all-encompassing love. We are saints and sinners. We can do the good, and we can do the selfish. Someone once told me about an experience they had that epitomizes this. One Christmas, she was at her parents' house. She had the flu and was sitting on the couch, wrapped up in a blanket, watching The Lion King with her family. And she had two 2-year-old nephews. One of them hopped on the couch, crawled over to her, then kissed her on the forehead and patted her on the cheek and said, "You feel better, Aunt Joan." Then he hopped off the couch, walked over to his cousin, and swiped his toy. From A to Z, kind and empathetic, to self-interested and self-centered. That's just the way we come, both and. Luther nailed human nature. And going forward, thinkers across all sorts of knowledge, all sorts of psychology and economics and what have you, say some of that in the same way, but Luther was the first, and Luther was clear as a bell. But then he took it one step farther. He explored what that said about God loving us. If that is the way we come, and God has decided to love us as we are, God has decided to love us, warts and all. God's love does set us free indeed. Our response to do the good is to do the good we can, knowing that God is holding us up in love even when we fall short. Our salvation does not depend on us and our action. We do not have to worry about earning salvation or making points. This allows us to love and do good, however limited, however grand, in freedom and with joy. There is no treadmill. There is no anxiety about whether we have done enough. When we do good, it is done for the other and not for ourselves. Luther looks at the 10 Commandments in the Catechism. He looks at "Thou shalt not kill" and expands upon it. He includes not doing harm to another and actively wanting good for them. You do good for them for their sake, not your own. Christianity was born in the heart of the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire rose from the ashes of Greek civilization. The Greeks took the cultivation of virtue as a central purpose of education. You practice virtue so that you would become more virtuous. The goal was for the individual to reach the ideal. It is about me and my virtue, not about the other. It is about wanting the good for the other. Luther, in this case alone, torpedoes 1,000 years of Catholic teaching. Luther put the focus outward, embracing the other because we have been embraced by God. It's not about our cultivating virtue. Many years ago, more than I cared to count, I went to my 5-year high school reunion. I still lived in the area. They had sent out a questionnaire. I thought they were just going to take the answers and compile them into statistics, like how many kids married their high school sweetheart, how many kids had kids, whatever. But that's not what they did. They took all our answers, put them in full in a booklet, and then they dropped it off at people's houses or people they knew had families still in town. Well, I read the questionnaire in the break room at work. Then I showed it to a coworker, and the questions asked were, are you married yet? Do you have any children? Space for 3. What degrees have you earned, and what have you done for the last 5 years? I showed it to my coworker who commented, let's see, I'm not married, I don't have any children, I quit college. Oh, this last one's for losers like me. So with that, she and I put our heads together and decided to come up with some funny answers. Then I attached a letter to it. I thanked them for all their hard work and let them know I was concerned that some people might see the questions and feel like they don't measure up. And I knew that they would not want that. I thought that was the end of it until I got to the reunion. I was talking with a friend when Beth, a nightmare bully from my childhood, came up to me. And she says, I am so glad you're here. When I saw the questionnaire, I felt like I couldn't come because I wasn't good enough. Then I saw what you wrote and knew there would be at least one person I could talk to. Well, my head started working overtime, as she told me about her life. She had gotten into drugs, and realizing that that was going to ruin her life, she went into rehab, and she was going to have her associate's degree come January. In my head, I started yelling at God. If I had known that this would help Beth, I would never have done it. Yeah, I'm not that good. I try, but I'm not that good. Then I thought, yes, I would have, because I would not want to be the kind of person who withheld the kindness from everyone, from someone. And I would have resented every minute of it. But I was raised right, so I wouldn't. All of a sudden, a huge light went off over my head. None of this was about me or the kind of person I wanted to be. It was about Beth and what she had accomplished, which is pretty huge. Takes many people multiple trips to rehab to get a grasp on it, and she looked like she was doing it in one go. Suddenly, I could be happy for her. That is grace, and that is God's love in action. It sure isn't mine. That was God. Beth could find her way back, and God could bless her and be there for her, and I could want that for her. God can love each of us with our shortcomings. God can love us even though the good I want, I cannot do, and the evil I do not want, I do. The least I can do, and all of us can do, with gratitude, is be open to God's grace showing up in other people's lives. Even those I don't like, or you don't like. You can be happy for them. Now we know that we cannot truly separate wanting good for the other from wanting to be good ourselves. It has taken about 400 years to realize it is sort of a which came first, the chicken or the egg. And even as we acknowledge this, Lutheran theology has remained constant in its belief of faith only, grace only, scripture only. The good action grows out of our faith and our acceptance of grace. However, without our faith, without our deeds, our faith is dead. Without good deeds, we squander God's grace. And without scripture, we do not know our purpose. There is nothing new here. It's been ground that's been covered for 400 years. But it is ground worth walking for us also. And this is for a couple of reasons. One is that we can find it difficult to accept forgiveness for our failures. We try, but our shame, our smallness, pulls us back into doubt. And oftentimes, we have it up here, but it hasn't migrated to the heart yet. And that's the challenge. And that's why I tell stories, hoping to have it move from the head to the heart with a, oh, kind of. So you know, that's my kind of hope for people. Letting our soul really grab hold of our worthiness is an ongoing project. It helps to remember who made us worthy. And as we grow in this, our compassion toward ourselves and others increase. We become able to see our fragility and the fragility of others. God can grow a tender heart within us. Lastly, it is like a key that opens us to the heart of God. The love that Jesus shows us on the cross can bring us to our knees in awe and gratitude. And that is the last word. It opened the doors of heaven for us, and Jesus walks along the way with us to there. Precious grace.